Let's go to the other team I wanted to speak about, and that is Leeds. Now Leeds, obviously, I've been meaning to speak about Leeds for quite a while, and I thought after their 2-1 win against Liverpool, I thought this is the perfect time to speak about them. Now, what Leeds have been this season is so confusing. Now, I had them. I can't remember where exactly I had them pre-season, but I know I had them between 13th and 10th, I think, or maybe 14th and 10th. I said there were no chance of going down. They were going to be very safe this season, be a very just mid-table team, can upset a few teams, drop some points they probably shouldn't, take some points away from other teams which they probably shouldn't. Just be a team around that 14th to 10th mark. They'll be fine. And despite this, they found themselves in the relegation zone prior to this game week and really needed to win against Liverpool, and they actually did. Granted, the circumstances in which they did, probably it wasn't emphatic. I know the first goal was fucking hilarious, but they won, and they needed to, and they won well. Now, why I wanted to speak about them was because they're probably the most confusing side in the league, and the reason I say that is because they were in the relegation zone. They went on a 5-game loss streak, I think, despite playing really well and despite playing an extremely attractive style of football that will work in the Premier League. Now there's a couple of avenues which I wanted to go down with this, and I think it's best to start with. I just want to bring up some average positions. That's all I want. I just want to bring up some average positions. Is it this one? It is this one. Great. This is Leeds' average positions against Arsenal. Now, the reason I bring up this Arsenal game and not like the Liverpool game, which they've just won, or the Chelsea game which they beat 3-0, or which they won 3-0, I should say, is because I watched this Leeds Arsenal game and I thought Leeds performed very well. I thought they more than held their own and really probably had the lion's share of chances. I know, obviously, they lost the game 1-0. Patrick Bamford had a penalty, which he unfortunately put wide, but they had 16 shots to 9. They had 4 shots on target apiece. They created 3 big chances to 1. They had 9 shots inside the box. And they really played an attractive and aggressive style of football, which was so pleasing to watch, especially on the eye, right? So when you look at this system here, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because this is so typical of Leeds. Obviously, they play with that 4 at the back. You have Koch and Cooper playing as those 2 centre backs, with Struijk and Christiansen on those widths, and on those wide flanks, I should say. And what you have here is, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I don't need to say it, but for the audio listeners, they are very, very wide, especially Christiansen, who's practically got an acre of space, or in every single direction, because there's just no one near him, right? And then you have Struijk, I don't know how to pronounce his name, on the other side, who is hugging the touchline as well. Then you have that double pivot in midfield of Roca and Adams. Roca occupying in this game a little bit of a slightly more advanced position than he normally would, but you have Adams, who is your more typical defensive midfielder, whereas Roca is a little bit more advanced in a sense. Now, I know they can alternate roles because they're both very fluid players. And then what you have with that front 4 of Rodrigo, Aronson, Harrison, and Sinistera is Sinistera, who's your winger, who is your player that will get into those half spaces, hug the touchline, and really push out wide. And then you have those 4, Rodrigo, Harrison, and Aronson, who there's no real striker there. I know Rodrigo acts as that striker, but he is really a number 10, maybe even like a centre forward, not like a true striker, kind of like a centre forward in a sense. Then you have Brendan Aronson, who I've been really excited to see this season. I think he's been fantastic for Leeds, and I think he's a real player for the future now. So you have those 3 players playing as like a triangle, with Harrison being as that base, right? And while average positions, taken with a grain of salt, because they're average positions, right? These aren't exactly the positions that these players occupied for the whole game. What this shows here is a real intense way of playing football. And the reason I say this is because it's wide and it's compact. And what you have with that is you have a lot of players covering a lot of ground without much space in between them. And they because of this, the offside rule plays a big part in that, is because they move up, if I can show it with my hands, they move up and back as one. It's kind of like the whole team stays within this like maybe 30, 40 meter like box, and they just press really intensely, and then they drop back. They press really intensely, and then they drop back. That's why this compact system, whilst playing so wide, suffocates teams in a sense. This is something that Jesse Marsch has been known to play at pretty much all of his clubs, and it's this way of playing football is extremely hard to play through, and you need to be very good at exploiting space in order to beat this system, right? And we all know Leeds haven't had the best start to the season, right? In a sense, I mean they have a minus. What is it? They have got a -4 goal difference, I think it is. Yeah, they've got a -4 goal difference. They've conceded 19, scored 15, right? And from those 19 goals, a lot of them have been from teams exploiting space because of the way that they play. There's spaces, as you can see, from behind Koch and behind Cooper and either side of them. You can't play through this team. It's very hard to play through this team because of how compact and how disciplined they are in terms of moving as a unit. And some stats that can kind of attest to this. Maybe let's speak about them in possession first. I actually want to speak about them in possession because that's something that has also intrigued me as well. So in possession, they like I said, they scored 15 goals this season, right? Which isn't great. It's not good, but it's not great. But it's not like they're not scoring 20 plus goals a season, right? They've scored 15 goals, which apart from Leicester, who have scored 21, is the most from 12th or below, right? And I feel like this is a little bit of a not underrepresentation, but a little bit of a misleading statistic because they've created 21 shot creating actions per 90. They've had 9.67 key passes per 90, as well as 30 progressive passes per 90. While those stats aren't exceptional, it shows, if you compare them to other teams in the league, it shows that what Leeds are able to do is play a high tempo, aggressive way of playing football that creates chances, right? So they are creating a lot of chances, they're creating good chances, they just aren't able to finish them, right? And some other stats which I think are very poignant in the way that Jesse Marsch is instructing this Leeds team to play is that they have 2.92 passes per sequence. That's the third least in the league. Now this means the way that Leeds play football is very fast, it's direct, and it's high tempo. What a sequence means, right? A sequence starts when a team gets possession of the ball, and it ends in either a defensive action from the opposition team, a shot, or a stoppage in play. So that means Leeds have practically 3 passes until one of either of those 3 things happen, right? Now, you might say this is bad, but I look at it in a different perspective in terms of you can look at this and say, that's bad because they're turning the ball over, they're kicking the ball out of play, they're taking shots from ridiculous angles. You can argue this as well, but you can argue that. But what you can also argue is Leeds are playing a very quick, direct way of playing football that, when coupled with their defensive statistics, which I'll touch on right now, create for a very chaotic, intense, and counter-pressing way of playing football. The reason why this 2.92 passes per sequence is actually a very good stat for Leeds and not a bad stat is because when you look at their defensive numbers, they have the so just to touch on their attacking numbers again, they have the quickest sequence time with 6.13 seconds. So they have rounding up or rounding down 7 seconds and 3 passes per sequence. So as soon as they get the ball, on average, it's 7 seconds or 3 passes, or 7 seconds and 3 passes until either a defensive action shot or a stoppage in play. Now, the reason why I actually think this is a good way or a good statistic for Leeds and shows that they're actually playing a good way of playing football and a way of playing football that will actually help them in the future is because of their defensive statistics. They have the most tackles per game with 24. They have 10.8 tackles per 90, or 10.8 tackles in the defensive third per 90, the second most in the league. 9.9 tackles in the midfield third per 90, the most in the league, and 3.8 tackles in the attacking third, the second most in the league. So this obviously intensive nature, kind of the game plan is tackle, like press high, tackle, go quickly. They have the third most pressures with 166 per season, and these 2 stats really, really impressed me, and it's something which I thought was going to be fact, and which I've finally found out is fact, has pleased me quite a bit. Is they have the second most pressures leading to goals which is 4, and the 5th most pressures leading to shots, which is 18. They also have the least amount of passes per defensive action with 9.5, and what that means is Leeds press really high and really intensely, meaning that they make a lot of defensive actions high up the pitch. What passes per defensive action means is how many passes the opposition team has in Leeds' defensive third. So they have the least amount of passes in their defensive third, meaning that Leeds press really high, really intensely, and make a lot of defensive actions up the pitch. Hence why they've got the second most tackles in the attacking third and first most tackles in their midfield third. Now, this when you take both of these defensive statistics and attacking statistics and you look at these average positions, it starts to make sense the way that they're trying to play, and it starts to make sense what they're trying to do. They're playing a really compact, mid/high block that presses as a unit and presses really intensely. And once they get the ball back, it's go straight away. They press out with Aronson, with Sinistera, with Somerville, who got the winner over the weekend, with Rodrigo, with Bamford, with Harrison. They push really high. And with those wing backs, what these wing backs allow, having that width from the wing backs, allows as soon as you turn the ball over, you have an out ball. You have an out ball out wide where they can pick up the ball and they pretty much have a view of the entire pitch. This way of playing football won't work straight away, and it's very similar to the way that Marcelo Bielsa played football. Not identical by any means, but still very similar. And the reason I say this is because, and the reason why I think why Jesse Marsch was a very smart appointment was because you can't go from a Marcelo Bielsa way of playing football, which was very intense, very high octane, high tempo. Just we all know what Leeds were doing last season, right? You can't go from that to Sean Dyche. Sit back, 2 banks of 4, compact, low block, long ball up to a striker, hope for the best, right? Or a Steve Bruce way of playing football, very subdued, very timid way of playing football. This energy level is familiar to the Leeds team and got them mid-table in their first season, 2 seasons ago. Got them mid-table for a reason, right? So they're obviously used to this way of playing football, and they're obviously comfortable with it. And despite the results not panning out the way that they have been, the results are very misleading, very, very misleading. And while it might not show through XG or through other statistics, when you take a deep look at what they're able to do and what they're trying to do, once this system starts to pay off, and once they start getting smart with their pressing traps, with their positioning, because another thing, the way that this style of football is efficient is through being very intelligent out of possession. Because of the way that they press really high, really intensely. Sorry. My apologies. Because of the way that they press really high and really intensely, naturally there's going to be space for the opposition team to exploit. And the way you mitigate that is by pressing intelligently and by pressing as a team. That doesn't come like that. That comes over time. That probably takes a season, maybe even a season and a half, to really, really understand as a unit how to press and how to act out of position. We saw, I'll speak about Jurgen Klopp. His Liverpool team at the start of his tenure weren't that good, especially out of possession. They were leaking goals for fun. That's because they weren't cohesive enough as a team to press efficiently. We're seeing this now with Leeds as well. The idea is there and the way that they want to play football is there. But because they just aren't used to playing as a team in this system, they're going to leak some goals. But this will, with patience, with time, and with resilience, this will patch up, this will be plastered over, and they'll be a very, very solid team. And the reason why I say this is because their defensive actions and their attacking actions are very, very cohesive. They're very, very cohesive. And they're very connected. Your defensive third, midfield third, and attacking third are connected. Your out of possession play and your in possession play are very connected. Because put it this way, if you sit in a low block, with 11 men behind the ball, and then as soon as you win the ball, you try and pass it out from the back, that's not going to work, because you're trying to pass it out from the back when all your players are in your own half and you're stuck on your 18-yard box. That's not going to work. Similarly, if you press really intensely, really high, and you're on the halfway line and you're pressing your team really intensely, and you turn the ball over, say in your middle third, and then all you do is lump balls up to a target man, that's not going to work either. because you have so much space to exploit with your wingers and with your Mazzars and your attacking central midfielders, that lumping a ball up to a striker won't work, because that's not the way that your out of possession way of playing football is going to connect to your in possession way of playing football. That's why when I watched Leeds, especially to the back end of last season as well, earlier on this season, I was like, all right, they're very connected in terms of their mentality is connected. It's just that once they get more cohesion, once they get more connected with the tactics as a team, then they're going to be very good. Then they're going to be very, very good, because they've got talent like Aronson, who I'm extremely high on. I think he's a fantastic player. That double pivot of Rocker and Adams are fantastic, like very, very good. Sinistera is proving to be very good. You have obviously Somerville, who I think he started against Liverpool and obviously scored the winner. Let me just double check that so I don't make a fool of myself. No, yeah, he did start. He started against Liverpool and scored the winner. So you have these younger players who will be taught this Jesse Marsch way of playing football when they're still young, when they're still ready to develop. And then by the time the likes of Aronson, Sinistera, Somerville, Rocker, Adams are like 28, 27, 28, they're going to be entrenched in the way of this team playing football, and they're going to understand it like the back of their hand. So they're going to know it inside and out. They're going to know exactly what they need to do. And because intrinsically a high pressing way of playing football works, we've seen it with Liverpool. It just works. In the Premier League, it works. This gegenpress style works. So the fact that Jesse Marsch is employing this, once he gets it all right, which I think and I know he'll do, then Leeds are going to be very dangerous. They're going to be very, very dangerous. They need a little bit of luck along the way. I think a cup run will do them a world of solid to get some more funds in, to bring out some more players in to supplement this game plan. I do think they need a few more players to fully flesh out this squad. But I really liked the signs they made in January. In the summer. I really liked the signs they made in the summer, and I knew from all those signs that they made, and I knew from the back end of last season, and I knew exactly what Jesse Marsch was about. I was like, this team aren't going down, no chance in hell. So, regardless of their current position and regardless of their current form, Leeds aren't in a relegation battle. Not at all. They're just in the relegation spots, but they're not in a relegation battle by no chance. So this is something that has been talked about quite a bit in terms of how are Leeds struggling when they seem to be playing very good or very well. This is why. It's just because I think the overall maybe conclusion to this to my point is, why are Leeds struggling? Well, Leeds are struggling because this way of playing football needs time. It needs time. It needs a lot of time. Because you can instruct 11 random people to sit back in two banks of four and lump a ball up to a striker. You can teach anyone that. It's a very simple way of playing football. This way of playing football that Jesse Marsch is trying to employ is very nuanced, it's very complicated, and it's very intricate, I should say, not intrinsic. Very intricate. My apologies. So the reason why they're struggling is because of this. If you make one mistake, if you're out of position one time, if you press wrongly one time, if you don't press high enough, if you press too high once, there's going to be space. There's going to be space to exploit. It's a high risk, high reward strategy, and I think it will pay off. I think they could be a little bit more clinical in front of goal. I mean, we looked at the average positions from this Arsenal game. Patrick Bamford scores a penalty. They've got one more point instead of no points, right? So, and they probably go on to get all three if Bamford scores that penalty. Let's be honest. So there's little moments like this, and they do need some luck along the way. I think that the game against Chelsea, they granted you make your own luck, but I think they got a little bit of luck in that game as well. But once, like I said, you make your own luck, and if they start to get a little bit more luck, start getting results to fall their way, start getting balls to fall their way, then we'll really see just how good they are. But Leeds fans don't need to worry in the slightest. They are so comfortable, it's not even funny. Every time they lose, I'm just thinking, all right, it will turn around eventually. They're not in a relegation battle by any means. People just need to relax. Yeah. Just because I've seen a lot of people saying, oh my God, Leeds are so shit. They're not. They're actually quite good. But yeah, there you go. They're just my 2 cents on Leeds. so far this season. Let's not finish up. Let's move on. And because I spoke about Leeds.